Good morning in Canada and good afternoon in Europe to this Nordic Battery Thursday webinar. My name is Christina Kieran and I am the country manager at Business Sweden in Canada. And we are broadcasting this live from our Nordic office in Toronto, where Business Finland, Innovation Norway, and Business Sweden all share the same office. I would like to extend a big thank you to the Nordic Battery Collaboration team in Norway, Sweden, and Finland for including Canada in the Nordic Battery Thursday series. And for those who have not been part of the series before, I can highly recommend that you tune in and watch some of the past webinars that are listed on the website. Today, we are going to learn a little bit more about our Nordic countries and how the Nordic countries and Canada are working together in linking the mining and the industry and the growing battery value chain sector. First, we will hear how the Nordic countries are collaborating to attract Canadian exploration companies to the mining industry in the Nordic region. And then we will hear how Canada is playing a very important role in the growing battery value chain. And as you can see here from the agenda, we have three great speakers today. We have Kari Aslaksen Asli from Norwegian Geological Survey that will give us a recap about Nordic Mining Day. We have Sean de Vries from Battery Metals Association of Canada and Catherine Goslin from the Mining Association of Canada. So it is a full agenda and I'm looking forward to listening to these speakers and also invite the audience for a Q&A session after the presentations. But before we dig deeper into the Canadian battery value chain, I would like to highlight a major event that took place on March 4th, the Nordic Mining Day in Toronto. This is an annual event that the three geological surveys of Norway, Sweden, and Finland is organizing together with Innovation Norway, Business Finland, and Business Sweden every year. And the main objective is to promote the Nordic region as a great country, a great region for prospecting and exploration. It is a popular event and it's always sold out. I have been part of it for the past 5 years and it's very exciting to see how it has grown in size and in interest. I think last month we had a record number of 180 people registered. So this year we did something different. We had a videographer that videotaped this event on March 4th, and we will show a video to highlight this event. But before we do that, I would like to introduce Kari from the Norwegian Geological Survey. Kari, you were here in Toronto last month on March 4th, and you attended Nordic Mining Day. Tell us a little bit more about who came and some personal reflections on that day.
Thank you, Christina. I can do that. So, as Christina said, Nordic Mining Day is an annual event, and it was arranged during PDAC for the 11th time this year. And as you heard, it's hosted by the trade commissions in the Nordic countries together with the geological surveys of Finland, Sweden, and Norway. This year, it was chaired by Finland, and in 2025, Norway will be responsible for the event. And PDAC in Toronto is the leading event for companies and organizations and people that are connected to the mineral industry. And this year there were more than 26,000 visitors during the 4 days of the event. So this is the event for the mineral industry. PDAC is also a very important event for the Nordic countries. This is the place where the Geological Surveys can promote the Nordic resource potential and attract international industry and investors. And during PDAC, we always, for the 11th time now, have arranged the annual Nordic Mining Day, which is a half-day event where we focus on exploring and exploiting the vast mineral potential that we have in the Nordic region. And just to make it clear, the potential for battery minerals is big in the Nordics. And during this event, we want to highlight the Nordic region as an important supplier for raw materials needed for the green transition. This year's event, we focused on mineral politics, strategies and opportunities in the Nordics, and we had also politicians and authorities on the speaker list. We also had representatives from the industry, from the European Battery Alliance, and from investors talking about investing in the Nordic countries. We also every year have a session on the Nordic critical minerals potential. And this year we highlighted the Nordic potential for lithium, graphite and rare earth elements. So why do we do this together in the region? I would say the geological service in the Nordics have a very long history of working together, and we are quite similar when it comes to a lot of things. We have more or less the same geology, and we see that we can make more impact and are much stronger when we stand together. Because we know that there is no doubt that the Nordics as a region have a vast resource potential, and that the countries have both common and complementary minerals and metals, and we use this event to show this and to show the possibilities, and that it is a good idea to invest in the Nordics. And as Christina also said, I would say that this year's event was a success. It was fully booked, which shows that the event is very attractive during the busy PDAC. And we definitely see a growing interest in the Nordics during this event, but also from the booth that we all had on PDAC. So I really hope to see some of you there next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Kari. Yes, it was a really great event, and now we will show a video of the highlights from Nordic Mining Day.
sul on null history't, sul on lihtsalt nagu blank slate.
Thank you. That was a good video, and there was a lots of energy, I think, at Nordic Mining Day, and it showcased that the Nordic region is really working well together, but also dependent on Canada, and is counting on Canadian companies to do business in the Nordic. Now we'll turn to Canada. Canada has all the ingredients for a complete battery value chain. There are close to 200 active mines in Canada that can provide all the minerals needed for the battery production. And Canada is now investing in building new battery factories, plants in both Ontario and Quebec. I am eager to hear Canada's path to a successful energy transition and how Canada is working to support a resilient battery value chain. So please welcome Sean de Vries from the Battery Metals Association of Canada.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. I couldn't have asked for a better lead-in than that video. I think that was an excellent video. And so many of the things that are talked about there can really be applied in Canada as well. So I think you'll see a lot of similarities on what's happening. Put together this slide here just to talk about a few different things, and I'm going to talk about each of these kind of separately. But again, you'll see some of the commonalities. What I'll start off with is just a quick background on BMAC, who we are and what we do. So the Battery Metals Association of Canada is a nonprofit industry association. We were developed to help build out and support the growth of Canada's battery value chain. And so we really focus on all aspects or all segments of the value chain, from mining and exploration all the way through to materials production, production of batteries, of course, and recycling at end of life. So all of those different segments, which makes it a very wide scope of application of what we're looking at. But having said that, the battery value chain in Canada really is still very much in the early stages of development. And so there's a lot of things happening. So I start off on the left-hand side there, talking about resources. And I think what's important to note, as again, in that video, there's a lot of resources in Canada. We have a large landmass, resource rich, many of those resources that are necessary for the energy transition. The other important factor, though, is that we have this really wide span, again, because of the landmass size, for where those resources are located. If you look at other resources, they're more centralized. This provides opportunity right across the country. So that's one of the things that in our work we're trying to build out and leverage. So with all those resources and potential, what do we do about that really is the question. And the next bubble there, the quantifiable demand, you see a graphic there of the roadmap for Canada's battery value chain. That's a report we published a little over a year and a half ago. And what that did was we looked at the government's zero emission vehicle sales mandate for 2030. We said, what is it going to take to get to that mandate, to meet that target of the 1.3 million vehicles, 100 gigawatt hours of battery capacity? So backing out of there, we looked at quantifying the types of metals that are going to be required, how much, what does that mean in terms of mining or projects to get those materials, and then all the way through to processing, production, and recycling. What are those capacities that are going to be required? So really just taking a look at what's the demand, where is development going to need to happen across the battery value chain. And so that provided a good roadmap of the opportunities, but also the potential gaps that are out there. And I have to stress that this was really looking through that lens of the zero emission vehicle sales mandate within Canada. And so obviously the demand is quite higher when we look at there's opportunities for partner countries, exports, other things beyond just EVs. So significant demand. The next step that we looked at was the ecosystem that's currently in place within Canada. And so this emerging ecosystem, very small graphic here. This is actually a online interactive tool. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to take a look at our website. It's a free tool there. You can zoom in, zoom out, do some searching, and figure out who's within the battery value chain currently. And the idea being, at its simplest form, just helping organizations within the value chain understand where they fit within that chain, who are potential upstream suppliers or downstream customers. And so when mapping this out, we start to see where, and this, being the step after the roadmap report, really supports where development needs to happen. And we see at the top segment there, which is difficult in this graphic to see, but that's the mining and exploration sector. Very strong in Canada, a lot happening there. As you move through to materials processing, to production, and even into recycling, there's a lot less capacity. And so those are some of those areas that we need to focus on. One of the key ones, though, that we really recognize is that midstream processing. So we know we have the minerals in Canada. We do see some developments already happening with investments taking place into gigafactories. But how do we get those materials from the point of extraction into battery materials? That's really the key question and the key issue right now. And so we're looking at this as, what is the innovation that needs to happen? How do we really best process those materials so that can be done in a globally competitive manner, in a manner that meets the ESG requirements and the expectations that we have for that as well. So we've got industry experts, and this is a project that we're working on now, focusing on 8 different key metals and seeing what's it going to take to get them from that point of extraction processed into the battery materials. And it's looking at things like the optimum processes, lowest carbon approach, and things like that. So we see this need for competitive innovation and a lot of focus on that right now. And then the next step after that, and it's a project that we're working on as well, but just generally within the value chain, is development and understanding of battery hubs and what's happening there. Where could we strategically invest further to make these developments or maximize developments that are happening? And we have a few battery hubs that exist within Canada. I would point out just very briefly, Sudbury, Ontario, which is a 140-year-old mining town, really has built up as an electrification hub as they're building out and even exporting mining equipment that's electrified. And really, you know, it's interesting to see the equipment being used to pull out these rare earth metals and critical minerals. It's already electrified, and we're using that to help in the energy transition. So it's an interesting story there and interesting to learn by. And we have a couple other hubs in Quebec, in Southern Ontario. Southern Ontario has the automotive industry, a large component within that area. And so it's already starting to develop. And so we see these opportunities and pardon me, the broader ecosystem and really the focus now for us is going to look at what's happening in the West and what are the opportunities there. It's such a large area. There's so many critical minerals there. And we think that that can be another great place to have some different hubs and focusing on, again, how those can really be competitive globally in what they're doing based on some of the minerals they have, other pieces of infrastructure and things like that. So looking at clusters and hubs and what really are the opportunities to be developed. So that kind of gives an idea of where we're at in Canada now and some of the work that we're doing to help support that. And I'll leave it there for now until we have some questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. That is a very ambitious and very nice roadmap that you have planned there. We will take some questions, but we'll jump to the next speaker, who is Catherine Gosselin, who is the director of Towards Sustainable Mining program at the Canadian Mining Association, or Mining Association of Canada, I should say. Welcome, Catherine. And I know Catherine is actually in Sweden, so great Swedish-Canadian collaboration here. But welcome to the webinar.
Thank you so much. And I think I'll probably kind of focus in on that first part of the value chain that Sean was presenting in his presentation. So just wanted to spend my allotted time sharing with you a little bit about what Canada has to offer when it comes to the minerals and metals required for the battery value chain. Sorry, am I controlling my own slides, or should I ask you to?
You can go forward. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Just let me know if that doesn't work for whatever reason. So just a little bit of introduction about the Mining Association of Canada. We're the national voice representing Canada's mining industry. We have over 50 members that are, you know, across all sorts of minerals and metals, commodities, iron ore, gold, diamonds, etc. You can see a bit of a list on the screen there, as well as members in kind of the service, supply sectors, engineering, environment, finance. But what it does mean is that we do have members across the mining value chain, everything from exploration through to mining, smelting, semi-fabrication, and supply for the mining industry. And before I move to the next slide, you can see on the screen here, you know, just to get a sense of not only how vast Canada is in terms of geography, but also the presence of the mining industry right across the country in every single province and territory. And, you know, it's probably a little too small to see on the screen, but you can see as well that there's a wide range of minerals and metals being produced in those different regions. So really, you know, when it comes to minerals and metals, Canada has an abundance and great diversity on offer. And when it comes to the conversation around battery supply chains, just a couple of key stats on the screen there. I think echoing probably some of what you'd find in Sean's reports and research. Canada is the only country in the Americas with all the minerals for EV batteries. We have you know, lithium, cobalt, nickel, manganese, graphite, copper, iron, aluminum, all produced in Canada with untapped reserves of those resources as well. Canada is among the top countries in the world for refined nickel production, and we're also actively increasing capacity for cobalt, graphite, lithium, rare earth element processing, the 6th largest global reserves of lithium, and mined capacity to meet up to 10% of global demand for lithium by 2035. And on that lithium note as well, just this past year, Canada was ranked for the first time #1 by Bloomberg NEF for its potential to build a secure, reliable, and sustainable lithium-ion battery supply. And just in the next few slides, I'm not going to go through these in too much detail, but I wanted to note as well a real advantage in Canada currently is we do have a very supportive federal policy environment when it comes to the mining industry. For the, maybe the first time, there's a lot of momentum around mineral resource production in Canada, starting with Canada's critical minerals strategy, which you can access online from the Government of Canada website that outlines the strategic objectives that we would like to achieve in promoting the mineral industry in Canada. And then that has translated into really unprecedented support for mineral resource development over the last few budget cycles in Canada. Again, I won't read through all of these in detail, but suffice to say, increase in exploration tax credits, lots of new investments in infrastructure and projects, lots of new support for research and development, public geoscience, partnerships, and that support continued as well through the federal budget in 2023. So again, some additional increases in tax credits, reallocation of funds to support critical minerals projects, more funding for infrastructure, lots, really going on at the federal government level and at the provincial and territorial levels to maximize this opportunity to really position Canada to supply our allies and partners with responsibly and sustainably produced minerals and metals that we all need. And I think another really important advantage that Canada offers, this was of course highlighted in the Nordic video as well. I think we're really like-minded in terms of the sustainability emphasis in the mining industry and across the battery supply chain. This is just one example demonstrating how Canada really is a leading low carbon producer of minerals and metals as well. So this this chart is showing I think in this case nickel, I believe, yeah, across the bottom. So just the carbon intensity of nickel production, different jurisdictions. So you can see Canada right down there at the bottom, along with our colleagues in Finland, in terms of the carbon intensity of our nickel production. And, we can see that in, Indonesia, Philippines, 8 times greater carbon intensity, 15 times greater carbon intensity. So just the, access to clean energy technologies, clean energy systems in Canada, like in many places in the Nordics, really puts us on an advantage when it comes to the low carbon credentials of the minerals and metals that we're able to produce. Another really important point to highlight is the role of Indigenous peoples in Canada's mining sector. So mining and Indigenous communities in Canada have a really unique relationship given, the location of exploration properties and producing mines. So in Canada, we have about 80 producing mines and over 2,500 exploration properties located within 200 kilometers of Indigenous communities. And, as a result, that of course means that those Indigenous communities are really key partners when it comes to engagement, consultation around projects, ensuring that, impacts are mitigated, ensuring the communities are seeing benefits from the mining sector. And, in terms of benefits from the mining industry in Canada, Canada's mining sector is the largest private sector employer of Indigenous peoples in the country. So you can see on the graph on the screen, the kind of blue section indicates the Indigenous share of the labor force generally in Canada, with the yellow line indicating the Indigenous share of the mining labor force in Canada. So, quite significant in terms of Indigenous participation as employees in, what's a really well-compensated industry requiring, a diverse range of skills and education. And it's really important in terms of supporting kind of offshoot businesses to support the industry in those communities, supporting the growth of Indigenous owned enterprises locally, and as contributors to the economies of, in particular, Northwest Territories and Nunavut. As well, you can see on the screen here just another note on engagement with Indigenous communities. In Canada, we have over 520 active agreements between mining companies and Indigenous communities, which are meant to facilitate Indigenous participation in, decisions around how, benefits, impacts from the mining industry are to be managed. So, that's a really, I think, unique and globally leading approach when it comes to promoting the sustainability and positive social and environmental outcomes of the industry. And then I also wanted to just close by highlighting another piece in which Canada really, I think, has some important collaboration to demonstrate with some of our Nordic partners, the Towards Sustainable Mining program. So this is a globally recognized sustainability program for the mining industry that began in Canada back in 2004, but it's since spread around the globe. It's implemented by national mining associations. Their members are in turn required to implement these standards as a condition of membership in their associations. There's a lot more I can say about the program if you want to read about it online. Third-party verification, multi-stakeholder governance at the national level to ensure that the standards are responsive to national, regulatory environments, cultural differences, reflecting local realities, and because of that wide adoption and ever-growing adoption, we now have over 250 companies around the world that are at various stages of implementation of the program, and that includes the members of Norskberg Industry in Norway and the Finnish Mining Association in Finland. So, great partnership opportunity in the Nordics. And on the battery supply chain side of things, I think this is also really relevant because we know that those at later stages in the battery supply chain are looking for evidence of, credible, verified ESG performance by mine sites around the world, and that's something that mine sites in Canada and these other jurisdictions are able to offer. And, I won't speak to this final slide in detail, but I just wanted to give a sense of the wide range of environmental and social areas that are covered in that standard. Of course, would be happy to dive into that in greater detail or, receive any questions offline as well if you're interested in learning more about the TSM program. So I'll end there and pass it back to our moderator.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine. A really interesting presentation and good to see all the work that you are doing. And to both of you, it's so apparent when I see what we are doing here in the Nordic Mining Day, as well as what's happening in Canada. There's a lot of similarities with a really robust mining sector that is then leading to the battery value chain. And it's not like we are competing with each other. I think we actually want to work more together. Like Catherine was saying, we are like-minded countries. We have similar industries, natural resources, and focus on sustainability that makes us really good partners. I do want to highlight that one example of a good collaboration is, of course, the fact that Northvolt has decided to build their first North American battery factory in Canada outside of Montreal. And that's, I think, a good example of taking advantage of all the good things here in Canada, the green energy, the expertise in the battery value chain, but also the innovative company like Northvolt. So that is a good example of collaboration. We are open to take questions from the audience. Either you can put it in the meeting chat, or you can put your hand up, and I'm happy to field those questions. But while we wait on those questions, I do want to comment on Sean's roadmap. I did go into your website, and it's hard to see in your slide. It looks like a piece of art on your slide, but it's actually an incredible roadmap where you can see, and you can click on all these dots to see all the mining companies, all the actors, all the stakeholders, and what they do and how they fit into that value chain. So I think that was an incredible job there on that roadmap, and really very visual how robust the Canadian mining industry is. But as you pointed out, I also noticed that the processing sector is rather thin. And I was wondering if you want to comment on what is needed in order for that sector to grow and invest more in.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I'll start with just recognition of the ecosystem map first. And absolutely, it's a tool you have to use to really get the appreciation for it. And it is a tool. You can go online. It's interactive, as I said. And I think that's our second version of the tool. And so there's been actually so much growth over the last year that it just became unmanageable in that form. And that's part of the problem is, with this growth, which is great to see the growth in the industry, it's made that a little more difficult to navigate. So we have a third version coming out shortly. I'll just plug that quickly to say you'll have some better views, some additional data points. So that continues to grow. And that's, again, one of those resources we're trying to provide to help support the industry and its development. And as you say, it's very clear looking at that midstream processing really is the gap. And even back to our roadmap report, that's what we had identified through that work as well, but that's the gap. So we've got a couple of data points now saying this is an area or an opportunity that we need to lead on and to fill this gap. And so some of that is happening. There have been some investments. I think what's really interesting now is we're starting to see, if you look at that ecosystem map, some of the folks that are in or organizations in other pieces of or other segments of the value chain moving into different components than they're traditionally in. And what I would give as examples like General Motors, Ford, for instance, partnering with organizations to develop facilities for materials processing. So maybe not taking it on their own, but through partnerships, that's helping some of that development. Some of that is happening, and both those organizations are doing things in that Bécancour region in Quebec, one of those hubs that I talked about. So we do see it happening. The challenge is building out some of these material processing facilities is kind of a 2 to 5 year process typically, and it requires significant investment. So that's where we want to make sure that we're focused on building out the entire ecosystem and knowing where the gaps are that need to be filled, because that's definitely a significant one.
Interesting. Yeah, we see that in a lot of sectors, a lot of partnership, mergers and acquisitions, because I think everyone need support and helping each other to move towards this green transition. I would like to ask Kari. So we talked a lot about the Nordic Mining Day and a lot of similarities between the Nordic region and Canada. But why is the Nordic region so dependent on Canadian exploration company? Why do we need the Canadians to come? Why can't the Nordic region explore on their own? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, there is a mining industry in the Nordics, and some of the producers today do explorations, but the big exploration companies are in Canada and in those big international mining big countries. So I think I would say that is the main reason that the exploration industry in the Nordics isn't too big. So the competence, the skills we have some of it, but and also there's no secret that exploration is very, very time consuming and very expensive. So we need also international investors and companies to come into the Nordics and to see, and they are interested. So that's also good, yeah.
Yeah. And we see a handful of both the Canadian and Australian companies being very active in the region. But there is untapped potential, and more companies are needed. So, but it's good to see the growth. Catherine, I know that you are promoting, of course, towards sustainable mining, or TSM, and great to see that it has grown so much over the years, and so many other countries are involved. I know that you're also speaking to Sweden about this. Sweden is not part of it right now, but can you give a little bit of an update on that dialogue?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's much I can say from their perspective. We're of course really open to sharing the program with Svemin or any other national mining association that wants to do so. At the same time, I think the membership of every association has to make a decision around what pressures they're facing related to ESG performance and reporting, and what the right time is for them to adopt the program. Something I didn't mention in my presentation as well is that just announced last November, we're actually collaborating with the International Council on Mining and Metals, the Copper Mark, and the World Gold Council around the possibility of a single converged mining sustainability standards. So I think that probably factors into decisions by national mining associations around TSM adoption, as well as whether they're wanting to wait and see how that collaboration turns out. But certainly, TSM has the most history there and is forming the basis for a lot of that possible consolidation of standards. So we are still very much engaging with associations who want to adopt our existing program in the interim.
Great. Very good. I don't see any hands up. Are there any questions for the speakers before we wrap up? Yes, we have someone from here. Marco, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. Thanks first for the presentation. It was really interesting to see these collaborations between Canada and the Nordics for sure. I'm thinking about the huge development within the battery industry with driving by the passenger cars, ESSs, whatever it is. We are going towards a complete electrification in the world. What is the major challenges you can foresee in terms of producing all these materials that will be needed? Because we see a steep curve of new battery plants growing up everywhere. What will be the biggest obstacles in the value chain that you can foresee from your side?
I will let Sean address that if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there are a number of challenges, and the number one I would say right now is investment in the sector, strangely enough, because there's a lot of potential for things to happen. There's a lot of build out that needs to happen. And some people are ready, right? Like some organizations are there on the verge, but they just financially aren't able to do it yet. I think some of the mining side, you see that as well. There are opportunities, there are mines, but there isn't the investment in it. So we have to first focus on that. Some of the work that we're doing, that's what we're trying to do, is prioritize, because so much needs to happen at the same time. All of these pieces in development of all of these segments of the value chain need to happen, and there's going to be huge investment for that. So prioritize what we can, ensure we've got the investment, and move those projects forward so that they can actually come to fruition. Because there's timelines when we're talking about opening mines, right? It's not quick. It takes a long time. Battery processing facilities as well. It can take 5 years to build a facility. So those are some of the things I think that are going to be the biggest challenges is timing as well.
Yep.
Thank you. And I most likely agree, but it will be a very intense period from now on forward for anyone in this sector for sure. So thanks.
Thank you so much. We are running out of time here, and so we will close here. And I just want to extend a big thank you to Kari, Sean, and Catherine for sharing their presentation and their experience in this very important sector. It just shows how close the mining industry and battery sector is working together. And I think it also shows how close the Nordic region and Canada is in this industry. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to the audience for listening in. And we will make this recording and the presentation available to all of you. Thank you and have a good day.